and welcome to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. Before we get to the show, let's get the pleasantries out of the way.
First of all, our website. If you want more information about our little podcast, go to wearethecontrarians.com. That's where you'll find links to our old episodes, to our Patreon channel, and to our awesome Contrarians merch.
You can show your support by buying a Contrarians mug or a pillow.
I like the laptop bags myself.
Second of all, if you enjoy the show, tell your friends. Or even go a step further and leave us a 5-star review on whatever platform you use to listen to your podcasts.
Finally, if you want to reach out directly to us, that's what social media is for. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at Contrarian Prime, or check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/Contrarian Prime.
Julio runs our official Twitter account at Contrarian Prime, but if you want to give me a piece of your mind or just want to banter about pro wrestling, you can follow me at Contrarian Alex.
That's it. That's our intro.
Now, time for the show.
This is all
And we are recording for Contrarians Corner for Death Sentence.
Hello, and welcome back to the Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong. My name is Alex, joined as always by my friend and co-host, Julio Oliveira. Julio, why are we doing this movie again? I'm very excited, but we've got a lot of lovely patrons. You and I come up with some story arcs for us to do that sometimes I get confused as to where we're at and why we're talking about our subject at hand.
Well, no story arc yet. The next big Contrarians event is right around the corner. But first, this is just a plain old patron demand from Paul, maybe looking to just redeem himself, get back on our good side after some pretty controversial picks, like Drop Dead Fred.
Whew.
And yes. So I think that he was trying to. This is a peace offering. It feels like every few episodes we just can't stop bringing up how much we dislike Drop Dead Fred, and we've almost forgotten how much we liked Baccarat, which is another pick of his from a long time ago. And so, yes, Paul, we like Baccarat. We didn't like Drop Dead Fred, and now we'll find out how we do with Death Sentence. But it is certainly, at least in concept, I think a step in the right direction, because we like Kevin Bacon, we like thrillers, and we like John Goodman.
I would like Garrett Hedlund, like Matt O'Leary, as has been proven on our Patreon page. We're a big fan of the underutilized resource that is Matt O'Leary. You got Kelly Preston, rest her soul, who was a good actress. Aisha Taylor was a good actress. I mean, this movie, I had vague memories of it from its initial release, which we'll talk about more in our second part of the episode. But, I mean, James Wan. Have we done a James Wan movie on the Contrarians so far?
I don't think so. I think we've talked to death about the Saw franchise, but not directly. We just always in a very dismissive way.
I beg your pardon. We give Tobin Bell his props in the Goodfellas episode. So
yes, yeah, no, I mean Tobin Bell. He escapes most of, and you know what? And not to throw you under the bus, but really, most of the Saw complaints come from you, because I've only seen one of the movies, and I was like, that's fine.
No, yeah,
you're like, they destroyed the horror genre.
Okay, well, hold on. I don't go that. There's a lot of other moving parts, but I think that's fair, because if I'm not mistaken, isn't Paul like a massive proponent for the Saw franchise? So, or at least the first one, I know he's a big fan of. So, I think that's all very fitting. And James Wan we could have easily done Insidious or Fast. He did one of the Fast and the Furious, right?
I think the 7th one, yeah,
and Aquaman. So I'm glad we did more of like a deep cut here, and I feel this is fitting of what we do. And
this is Unplugged.
Yeah,
this is the hidden track on the Unplugged album.
So this was his adaptation. If we're making the reference to music there, this is his cover of the Death Sentence novel from 1975, written by Brian Garfield as a sequel to Death Wish, which we've of course talked about. We joked about the Death Wish franchise starring Charles Bronson, an aging Charles Bronson in Death Wish 9. And Death Wish, of course, would be adapted once again by known scumbag Eli Roth in 2018. That's one that I remember being torn on, but I still have no interest in ever watching because, it was written by Joe Carnahan, who Smoking Aces and A-Team I'm a big trumpeter of, but not even he and Vincent D'Onofrio and Elizabeth Shue could pull it together for me. So somewhere in between that, we have Death Sentence here, starring Kevin Bacon. We've talked about Kevin Bacon before, but this is the first Kevin Bacon vehicle we've covered, correct?
I'm thinking. Recently on Patreon, you talked about X-Men First Class, but that might be the closest we've gotten to a Bacon discussion.
2007, summer of 2007. Any memories, Julio? Film-wise, excuse me.
God, is that There Will Be Blood?
Yes, There Will Be Blood. No Country for Old Men was more the fall, Juno.
It wasn't Juno.
There was a movie that came out on the same day that we've talked about in the past. Want to take any guesses? I will say this, that a release date of August 31st was not fitting for the name and subject of this film.
Probably a Christmas movie. I don't know. It's so like a big, all the dates get...
Yeah, this is a big, my brain and its fixation on data. That's a dividing point between us. But it was Rob Zombie's Halloween was released on August 31st of 2007.
Of I should have known because I saw that in the theater and I should have just remembered.
If I remember correctly, what was still like the stronghold from the summer was Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End. I think that was summer of 2007. I don't know. But anyway, Kevin Bacon decided that it's time to get violent, baby. And it's time to seek retribution. And it's time to make a box office bomb. So he partnered up with James. Bomb is intense. A budget of $20 million, box office return of 17. But I think for the purposes of what we're discussing here today, it was not well received critically at all. Currently standing at a 20% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I think with over 100 reviews. So a pretty good pool they pulled from there.
I know when we've talked about Kevin Bacon, it just came to me. And that is not because of a movie, but just because of the strategy that Kevin Bacon adopted regarding his career post, I want to say Footloose maybe, because he kind of like hit it big. He was the lead in several projects and then he was having trouble finding good parts. And so he changed tactics and started taking supporting roles because he realized that the really good stuff was in supporting roles because he was losing out on the interesting lead parts, but it was a lot easier to land supporting roles and that he kind of rebuilt his career and became, not to sound mean, became relevant again. Mm-hmm. And by building up his resume with good supporting roles in high profile movies. And then he was like, all right, I'm ready for a bomb. Do I need to shave my head? Okay, we'll do it halfway.
For a guy that's existed to seem dismissive of his early credit to his acting career in Friday the 13th, it's got to be humbling to shave your head on screen. To make this sentence? Yeah. To get shot in the neck while Garrett Hedlund stares across the screen at you and says, "Look at you."
To not be able to save your family.
No shit.
Twice.
But I think he was paying homage here because, of course, in Friday the 13th, he takes a spear through the neck, or the throat, rather. And here he ends grabbing his neck. So maybe this was a wink and a nod for Mr. Bacon to Sean Cunningham and the other campers at Camp Crystal Lake, and also, of course, Betsy Palmer, of saying, hey. So
you think Kevin Bacon went up to James Wan and he's like, hey, what if we do one for the fans where I get injured in the neck? You get it? Or do you think there was the other way around? Bacon was in the makeup trailer and James Wan came up to him and was like, I have an idea. Listen, don't say no first. Just think about it. And then he pitched him and Bacon was like, fuck it.
He's like, I was watching Showtime in the hotel room last night and Friday the 13th is on and motherfucker, you never told me you were in that movie.
Smoking is bad, speeding is bad, deaths in the family are bad, divorce is bad. It's just kind of nice to see that all that junk is still true.
All right, Julio, So I want to get into this, but before we do, of course, we have to explain what it is we do here on the Contrarians. Here on the Contrarians, our battle cry, we like to rage against the Rotten Tomatoes machine. We grab our flag and march up the hill, and that's what we scream. That's who we fight, is the Rotten Tomatoes machine. Find a movie on Rotten Tomatoes that is highly rated, a lot of times accompanied with that pretty IP, that trademark logo that signifies it is certified fresh. And what we'll do is cut that movie down to size, talk about maybe some of the overrated aspects, poor costume design, weak plot holes, bad acting, poor score. I'm constantly on the hunt and on the prowl to talk shit about bad CGI or even just over-reliance on CGI. So those type of things, just in an effort to say, maybe the critics that compiled this review weren't telling the whole story. Conversely, we'll find a movie on Rotten Tomatoes that is lowly rated, usually about 30% and below. So today's death sentence at 20% surely fits the mold. And as you could guess, we talk about the film's positive merit, build it up, talk about good acting. Good action sequences is one that we're going to be talking about today with this one. Maybe just a movie that fell between the cracks for whatever reason is fairly underrated. Good score. Good soundtrack, what it takes to say maybe that low score isn't indicative of the enjoyment you'll get from this movie. All an attempt to, obviously art is subjective and you can be performative about it. You can be as over the moon about something or as downright cynical about something that you want to be if you set your mind truly to it. And also from the get-go, the whole reason this started is Julio and I used to always talk about the Rotten Tomatoes system is a bit flawed in that a lot of people don't really entirely know what that percentage entails and what it means and what you should take away as the reader, or I guess the person who's reaching out for resource or recommendations. So we're here to kind of help tell that story a little bit better and do what we can to help the movie-going audience. But that all compiles the first half of our podcast, part one of each episode, what we refer to as Contrarians Corner. Julio, if listeners want to know how we really feel about the movie we're tackling, they just need to stick around for part two, the second half.
That's correct. Part two, the aptly titled Real Talk. That is where we tell you how we really feel about the movie. We forget about the Rotten Tomatoes score. We don't look at the Tomatometer anymore. We just focus on how we experience the movie. Sometimes we don't know how the other one feels. I knew that you had some familiarity with this movie, Alex, because you kind of jumped at the chance to do it when it came up from Paul, when Paul brought it up. And I'll tell you about it in Real Talk, but at first I thought that maybe I had seen it or maybe seen part of it. Then as I was watching it tonight, I was like, no, I haven't seen it. I'm thinking of a different movie. And then towards the end, he started shaving his head. I'm like, no, I have seen this. I was just really drunk. So we'll go over it. And I'll tell you how I think I felt back then and how I feel today, having watched it fully awake. In Real Talk, that's where you get to find out that. And then we give it a score, a real score, not a Rotten Tomatoes score that's misleading. We tell you exactly what we think this movie's worth it, because what is art for if not to be assigned arbitrary numbers in qualifications? But before we do any of that, we have to do Contrarians Corner. This movie's rotten. That means that we're going to say really nice things about it.
20% of Rotten Tomatoes, so not wholly crapped upon. We've done 0%ers on here, man. So 20%, whatever those, what's a 0%er we did? I don't even know now. But
Left Behind, which is part of the Contrarians physical collection.
It's true. I don't think that movie particularly cared, but some of those would beg for a 20%er. So, but for the most part, critics didn't give a shit. They didn't care about Kevin Bacon and his family here. They just said, "Get this off my screen." What were their problems? What were they saying?
I have 4 rotten quotes from the Rotten Tomatoes website. We're going to start with Richard Probst from the independentcritic.com, who says, "In all honesty, I didn't expect much from the film, and I didn't get much." So Richard already went in expecting to not like it. And I think that that's on him. If it's like you when you watch superhero movies, you already have this mindset that you're not going to have a good time. And then, unsurprisingly, you don't have a good time. Richard was probably not a Death Wish fan. And I was like, this is just the same thing, but with Kevin Bacon. Who cares? Joshua Tyler from Cinema Blend says, "The only thing worse than the movie's cliche vengeance script is the clunky way James Wan directs it." Alex, would you say that James Wan's direction is clunky in this movie?
James Wan is a director who absolutely has like a feel.
Yes. How do you feel about Aquaman, Joshua Tyler? Next, Mike Russell from The Oregonian says, an ugly, stupid, and meaningless thriller. Ugly, I understand, but that's ugly with a purpose. This is not supposed to be pretty to look at. A lot of horrible things happen. And meaningless, I mean, in the sense that maybe it posits that the act of defending your family is meaningless because you will lose no matter what. Maybe, but that doesn't mean that the movie itself is meaningless. I'm going to close with Josh Larson from Sun Publications, Chicago, Illinois. And he says, ultimately undone by a ridiculous final half hour in which Bacon turns into the Terminator.
Yes, it's awesome.
It's the best part of the movie. It's a good movie with an even better final half hour. That's what you're building to. That's the whole point of watching one of these movies. You want to see Kevin Bacon kicking ass.
Yeah, and that's also like the Death Wish movies are just, movies of this era. This is like you could make an argument, this is like a Grindhouse type movie also. So if that's not what you're into, then yeah, it ain't going to work. But I disagree.
Sorry to all four of you, but we're about to build the opposite argument. We're going to tell you everything that's worthwhile in that sentence. Alex, take us into Contrarians Corner.
Mr. Hume, I've got one eyewitness, you. That's nice. But do you know how many cases with one witness I don't even bother to try for a deal on? The machete magically disappeared. The only blood we could find on that weasel was his own from when the car clipped him, and you picked the only gas station in America without a working surveillance camera.
Let's see where to begin here. Nick Hume, a businessman living in Columbia, South Carolina, goes to watch his son Brennan's hockey game. As they're driving home, they stop at a gas station in a bad part of town. During an apparent robbery of the gas station, Joe Darley, Darla Dimple.
Darlings. Or is that the family from 101 Dalmatians?
Yeah, I'm thinking.
No, Peter Pan. Wendy Darling.
Thank you. During an apparent robbery of the gas station, Joe Darley, a new gang member, slices Brennan's throat with a machete. Nick ambushes the thugs, pulls Joe's mask off, and sees his face. Joe escapes, only to get hit by a car. Nick rushes Brennan to the hospital, but the boy dies. Lucas, Nick's younger brother, and less charismatic son suffers survivor's guilt. So this is, the movie begins, and we get this portrait of, the perfect suburban family here. Kevin Bacon, his two sons, and then his wife, Helen, played by the late Kelly Preston.
Mrs. Travolta.
Yeah, kind of, I guess the only part of the movie that kind of made me sad, her untimely death. And she was really good. She was a good actress. And like stuff like this obviously isn't challenging isn't a word I would use to describe this, but she just was really good in this role and seemed to kind of immerse herself in it. And so it was kind of
a trick. When you have these really small characters only have like a couple scenes and just a few lines of dialogue, you need an actress that can make it count. So that's what you pull it off. You cast somebody like Kelly Preston, you're like, all right, well, I don't have to worry about that anymore. Let's move on to set up the squibs. I like her a lot too. It works, and I know it sounds silly, but just the idea that you have to get a group of actors with the right chemistry to portray a happy family in this opening. It's like, okay, you got Kevin Bacon, but now you have to surround him by, a wife and two kids that actually look like they're having a good time around him. And I think that it works. You see all these home videos, and I feel like you are a lot more familiar with the revenge genre than I am, Alex. But I know enough to know that I was watching a family that was going to be destroyed in the first act. I was like, that's what these movies are, right? You have the main guy, he loses everything, and then he spends the rest of the movie seeking revenge. And I was dreading it. It's not a pleasant experience, but that's what the movie wants you to feel. So I was watching, I was like, man, that sucks. At some point in this movie, I'm going to watch Kelly Preston die and the two kids either get murdered or at least be traumatized. I was not expecting the level of violence that we got, but I knew it was going to be bad anyway. He did his job. James Wan, the casting director, everybody, they gave us a happy family that you're worried about. Now, my question is, what godforsaken city are they living in? What is this? New York in the 70s?
South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina.
Is this an accurate depiction of South Carolina?
Yeah, man, once you cross the Mason-Dixon line, things are there's no guarantees You get to the South, like I know you live in, or we live in the People's Republic of Austin, but you can still find places in Texas that are dangerous like this with Garrett Hedlunds running around.
This is like Mad Max level of just
It's
lawlessness.
like Gotham.
Yes.
Speaking of which, what the fuck does Kevin Bacon do? Is he like an insurance adjuster? I couldn't figure out what
he's a risk assessment person.
Oh, he's Ruben from Along Came Polly.
Yes,
Ruben
that is
Pfeffer.
exactly what my note says. Well, it's such a good. I'm actually surprised we'll see more of these guys in movies because it's such a an interesting profession to give your protagonist, because it's somebody who is constantly assessing the odds and the is it too risky? It's fascinating that given his career, the Kevin Bacon character here constantly puts himself at risk. It's almost like he's going against everything he does professionally, which kind of makes sense because he's disassociating.
He's learned nothing.
No, he's like, do as I say, not as I do.
There you go.
Come on, don't make me file with the state.
We file with the state so that one day, if somebody looks back at this guy's death, he will see that we did our job.
Joe, the one who kills his son in the gas station, we learned it's not a robbery, it was a gang initiation, but Joe is played by Matt O'Leary, who are patrons present and future. I'm talking to you right now, who's not one of our patrons. You can sign up and go listen to us discuss the 2011 film Natural Selection, which we were both quite complimentary of his leading role as Raymond in that.
He's a lot more lovable in that movie.
Well, I don't know, but
according to Rachel Harris, he is.
That's fair, but is identified and is going to be taken to trial, and he looks just like a scumbag. I appreciated how over the top the wardrobing and tattoos and shit were on the bad guys in this, and we'll get to the head bad guy in just a moment. But the Joe here is going to go on trial, and the district attorney is trying to make a deal with Kevin Bacon to get this gangster, this thug off the street. And he tells him, it'll only be like 3 to 5 years since there's only one witness, and it's going to be a light sentence, and it wouldn't be enough to really take the case to trial. And
doing his best to just sell to Kevin Bacon how broken the system is.
I was about to say, my note said the legal system in the U.S. is ass, and that's not to say the legal system all over the world elsewhere is necessarily as ideal as it could be, but obviously this is a very dramatic portrayal, but sadly, I'm sure there's real conversations like this all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I stopped short of just asking you, who is the real scumbag here? Matt O'Leary or this dude, this DA that's just almost trying to discourage Kevin Bacon from seeking justice and telling him, look, how about we all just take it easy? Let's just do what we can so we can be done before lunch.
Let's relax, all right? Come on.
Yeah, don't you have another kid? Okay.
See, it's not that bad, all right? God gave you two. Yeah, during the morning of the son Brennan dying, then we get some Muzak, Sarah McLachlan, and it's raining at the funeral. So just tremendous early 2000s tropes were still very much alive here.
The best part was when the son got killed. As his throat gets slashed, he drops his slushy in slow motion.
Yes.
Now you don't see that in the 2020s.
The slushy for some reason was called Polar Blow. I was like, well, that's a unique name.
Icy didn't want to be associated with this movie.
Did you have Slurpees? Was there a frozen drink like that you remember getting as a kid that you really enjoyed?
Not a slushy. I discovered slushies as a concept when I moved to the States. What we had in Peru was what you call the ones that are ice with syrup, like
a snow cone.
Snow cones, yeah, that's what we have in Peru.
Yeah, the not gas station, but the convenience store closest to my house when I was a kid, they were called slush puppies. They were like Sonic Ice, but even finer than that. They would put and then give you a few hits of syrup, and so I can relate though. I mean, in high school there was a slushy machine that had like strawberry banana. I remember always getting down on those, and then I lived by a 7-Eleven in college, and Slurpees. My friend JP worked there, so we'd get big Coke Slurpees and put Jack Daniels in it. So I'm trying to say here, if I'm ever
you
like,
would have risked your life for slushies. That's what you're saying.
not saying that, but I am saying if I'm ever like in a situation like this, I will be probably with slushy in hand. So it was kind of like seeing how I could potentially die here. I was like, all right, well, this is how it's going to go.
You wouldn't drop it though. You would go down with the slushy still
fuck you,
firmly grasped.
He hates his throat slit, right?
Yeah.
I'd put like the cup to it, the cold. You're like, all right. Or the very realistic approach of Tom Hardy in Lawless, where he just grabs the wound and closes it and walks to the hospital. Kevin Bacon realizes he has, the law is not going to work, so he's going to have to take the law into his own hands. My note just says Bacon is going to TCB, and he recants his statement in court. So they let this dude out. They let him go. So he begins following him around, sees, the crew he runs with. We see Garrett Skin Headland appear, and I was proud of that. The ringleader, he plays Billy Darley, and we learned he is Joe's brother.
What's your history with Garrett Hedlund? When you were recounting the cast, you sounded pretty enthusiastic about him. And I like him as an actor, but tonight, much like with, I think, every Garrett Hedlund movie I've ever seen, I couldn't recognize him. Like, is he a chameleon, or is it just that he has that face that is forgettable?
His projects are unique in that he'll be in like big movies and then kind of not like indie smashes, but it's just a unique filmography when you look at it. So he'll do something like fucking Country Strong with Gwyneth Paltrow, and then the Pan movie that came out in 2015, the fantasy one, with Hugh Jackman, and still kind of forever bitter. Adele Exarchopoulos was supposed to play Tinkerbell in that, but that fell through. For me, Garrett Hedlund, you got Friday Night Lights, you got Four Brothers, which you called out, which he's excellent in. Tron, remember he was
I thought you were gonna say Troy. I was gonna cheer you on.
But he is a skinhead in this, and he's got nasty ass tattoos, and like I said, I appreciated just the severity, or like the degree of which the intensity of these tattoos, because they're like black, and they're the tribal tattoos that wrap up the neck, or some guys have them on their face and head, and one guy's wearing an Affliction shirt, so you can just remember it was the second half of the 2000s. And this movie, Julio, this is as good a time as any, because I remember when he finds them, they're outside and they have their big cars, and they're going to their fucking rundown apartments where they live. This movie during the day is so bright, and during the night sequences is so dark. Clearly not through the act of like poor filmmaking, but a director's vision. And I think that adds so much to the presentation of this.
It's a tale of the two Carolinas. The bright Carolina, the dark Carolina. South Carolina after dark. You don't want to mess with that. This is the role that Garrett Hedlund took when James Franco was on vacation. That was my feeling after. And maybe it's because, we've seen a couple of Franco turns that were along the same lines, like I'm thinking of Kin and Homefront.
Yep.
But just kind of like that kind of nasty bad guy facial hair and
white trash.
I could see Franco taking this role, and I'm glad that they didn't go that way. They went with the indie version of James Franco. They went with Garrett Hedlund, and I'm like, yeah, he can do it. He can carry a movie as the bad guy. I know that he's a skinhead, but I also kind of applaud the inclusiveness of his gang, because there's a black guy there that makes it almost all the way to the end.
A familiar dude. I couldn't put my finger on what I know him from, but that actor.
How awkward it is to be that guy in that gang.
Oh, that's it. He's the dreadlocked vampire in Twilight.
Oh my God. He's already been part of Contrarians history.
He is. His eyes are very memorable.
All right. So that was Twilight was after this, right?
The next year. Yeah. Okay. So up until this point, man, what a hell of a run. Eddie Geigy is the gentleman's name. And his run up until this point was Crank, Gone Baby Gone, The Fifth Patient, Death Sentence, and then Twilight. And then he was like, I'm done. I'm retiring. He was also, that's the other thing I recognize him from. He was First Class. He's the guy that Fassbender and McAvoy get in the taxi, and they're like, drive us to Washington, D.C. And he's like, that's 7 hours. And he's like, that'll give us time to talk. And then he's that dude.
He had a good run in the 2000s.
But to your point, yes, it'd be strange to be a minority in that group, because those white dudes look like they definitely have very problematic views.
The tattoos tell a story, and it's racist.
When one of us gets killed, we don't make the paper. But the son of a senior VP of Starfish Capital? Whoa-wee.
All right, so I'm glad then that we're on the same page about Garrett Hedlund and his band of hooligans. I wouldn't say that, because, there's some villains that you love to hate. In this case, I mean, did you find them sympathetic at all? Not about their views, but just the fact that they're kind of a family, and Kevin Bacon comes in and starts shit. Because, one of the themes, like one of the running conflicts in this movie, the questions posed is like, is Kevin Bacon in the right for seeking retribution?
I think
Did he make things worse?
He definitely made things worse. And it starts pretty much here on this night, because he follows him back and finds out where Joe's staying, goes back there, confronts him, and ends up killing him. It could be argued that he didn't mean to, but he did regardless. And
he just happened to have a knife.
And he was terrified by it. Yeah.
This is not Kevin Bacon action star. It's Kevin Bacon, like a dad that is angry, but he's not sure how he's going to take care of business here. It's not like this expertly choreographed fight scene between him and Matt O'Leary. They're just kind of tussling on the ground. And then before you know it, one of them has a knife sticking out of their stomach. So that's cool. That felt like a real thing. Like, this is just like a normal guy. And now he killed someone. Because most movies just turn him into an action hero overnight.
And he goes home, and he's obviously shaken up by it. He's crying in the shower, and he's really having a hard time about it. In the interim, before news breaks about Joe's death, we see Billy visit a wreckage yard, a junkyard, and walks in and is greeted by John Goodman in a preview of Llewyn Davis several years down the road, where John Goodman plays Roland Turner and Garrett Hedlund is his driver, Johnny Five. And that is what I think of when I think of Garrett Hedlund, his role in that. I always just, because he has like fucking 5 lines, but his presence is so strong.
That's amazing. I can't believe I didn't make that connection.
Incredible moments. We could go back, see if I can do math here, 6 years before that movie. And Bones is John Goodman. And what a strange part for John Goodman to take. And I mean that in the best way possible. He's just this vagrant, or just kind of this weird recluse is the word I was searching for there, who sells guns and gives people odd jobs. And he wears these glasses, and he's obviously really like dirty and just kind of like, a character you would meet in a video game type of thing. Not the type of thing you think of when you think of like America's Dad, John Goodman, that type of thing. So a really fun thing to see him do.
This proves that you can get Goodman to that level. You can make him Batman instead of Goodman. But you need a director that can pull that performance out of him. Todd Phillips, not so much. Because what I thought of was him as the bad guy in Hangover 3, where he's supposed to be this scary mobster and the reason why the adventure happens. And there, I didn't really buy it. And you see that performance and you're maybe thinking, yeah, I don't think that you should cast John Goodman as the bad guy in anything. He's lovable. He's Roseanne's husband. But then
he's Fred Flintstone.
He's Fred Flintstone. But then you see him here, and yeah, he's nasty and foul-mouthed and scary, and he gets a fraction of the runtime of the screen time that he gets in all those other movies. So, kudos to Goodman for. And how much of this do you think was him just coming in and saying, "Can I just have fun with this role? Can you let me try some things?" Or is it what I was thinking, that it's just James Wan pushing him and telling him, "Look, we know what you're known for. just step away from that. And we're gonna give you 2 sets of glasses. One that makes your eyes look really weird and big, and the other ones are just like your normal
he works on
reading
like
glasses.
car parts and shit, so he needs to have the extra magnified ones when necessary.
Yep. And then I'm sure he always wears the same shirt.
Yeah.
It's always greasy. And he has, I mean, we'll talk about it when we get there, but he has my favorite scene in the movie. So he for me, MVP. John Goodman walks away with that sentence.
If it was made in the past 5 years, absolutely a Trump flag hanging up there, right?
Just wearing a MAGA hat.
Yes. Yeah, more subtle. You're right.
He just, as he hands Kevin Bacon his guns, he's like, "Make America great again."
So they find out Joe's dead. They go to this bar and they're discussing it. And these are some smart gangsters because they put this shit together in like 30 seconds. They're like, he got killed at the apartment last night. Oh, yeah, he was just in that courtroom with this guy. And they take the paper out and they're like, oh, it could be this guy. And then the one dude's sister was like, I saw this guy in a suit there. And so they just show him the picture, and she's like, yep, that's him. This is what I live for, dude. In modern films, this whole sequence of them figuring out who it was, at least 20 to 30 minutes. This movie, 30 seconds. I know you have to suspend your disbelief that these hooligans could figure it out that quick, but come on, man, it's a movie. Give me what I want, and that is rushing the story along.
It's the combination of them being really good at figuring out who killed who, and Kevin Bacon being really bad at killing people and getting away with it. That's why it works. You know, I don't even think that Kevin Bacon, he probably just put his bloody clothes in the hamper for laundry day.
The knife he used, he wiped it off with a dirty rag and threw it out the window. Like he's not cut out for this life, man. I've been watching The Sopranos. I'm about through the 3rd season, and he would last 1 episode on that. He's not made for this life. But unfortunately, he doesn't have too much of a choice because they figured out who he is. They figured out where he works. They stalk him when he gets off work, which leads to this awesome chase sequence through downtown Columbia, South Carolina. I looked up, James Wan was born in Malaysia. So I want to read like the really negative review from, I don't know, the Columbia Gazette in South Carolina, where the reviewer is like, what would this guy know about Columbia, South Carolina? How dare he make us look this bad? But they chase him. They get to the parking garage, and this is awesome. Did you notice that there was this long one panning shot sequence here in the parking garage?
Yes.
Okay, my man.
I could feel James Wan masturbating over the soundtrack, and good on him. It's pretty impressive. My note says James Wan's camera just glides through all the violence, and that's a good thing. It's pretty it's memorably shot, and
it's fucking awesome. You're downplaying. I'll color it up a little bit. It's fucking tremendous. It goes to like
memorably shot is underplaying it.
You're much sweeter than me. I have to be really hyperbolic with everything. So
no, it's definitely. I think it's a centerpiece as far as like action sequences. I mean, it's not the most brutal. It's
the peak of the movie. It's not the most violent or brutal, but like artistically and from like the set piece sequence, this is like the peak of the movie.
Yeah, it is really good, and it shows you the evolution too of because here's the thing with the Kevin Bacon character, it walks that fine line where, like I was saying, he's not an action star. So you have to show him as this everyman that is just running from these guys. And so in a way you can say, if we're being realistic, he wouldn't make it. There's like 10 of them and he keeps making bad decisions, but they managed to make him resourceful enough that he actually manages to kill a second one in this sequence. He has a couple of like smart ideas, like when he sets the alarms off in all the cars, and then, the way that he hides, and it's not like he's a good fighter, but I guess he has adrenaline coursing through his veins, so that makes him
in his soul, not unlike Cody Rhodes.
Yes, put Kevin Bacon in the next WrestleMania. Just,
please.
If Knoxville can do it, Bacon can do it.
You're right.
I think that it's within the universe of the movie is believable. You know what I mean? Like if you make him too incompetent, then the movie's not fun. And if you make him too competent, then the movie is just too much. Then it's just this it's just a generic action movie. So you have to make him walk this line where he really seems out of his depth, but he can do enough to survive. He's not just getting by on luck. And this whole sequence in the parking lot is about that.
Jamie, get your willy ass in now so I'm there. Ain't gonna make a fool out of me, motherfucker.
So one of the guys catches him on the top floor, and they get into a bit of a tussle. And they end up inside this car. There's some gunfire, and Bacon's able to put the car into neutral, so it rolls back, and it's about to fly off this garage. And he ties this guy's neck up in the seatbelt so the guy can't get loose at the time. Car goes over the edge. Second guy's dead.
Bacon is like, all right, at this pace, the movie's gonna be 7 hours.
Hell no. That's why this is the shit, because we're about to basically hit the gas, and the movie just goes until the end. Someone puts a brick down on the gas pedal, and then it just crashes, and then the movie's over.
This is so like a non-thing in the movie, but I just became obsessed with it. There is a woman that works in Kevin Bacon's office that checks in on him a couple of times during the movie. Like, it never goes anywhere. But did you get the feeling that there was a subplot that didn't make it into the final cut where he was having an affair with her?
Yes, because specifically the scene following this where Bodie, that's Eddie Geige, maybe Gaethje, I apologize, Eddie, I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
The vampire.
Yes, when he brings him the briefcase, she causes a scene. She looks at him like, how could you? Or like, what did you get yourself into? That type of thing.
She gives him the look that Kelly Preston gives him later. That's like a little too intimate for a coworker. And she gets close-ups. That's why I was like, am I supposed to know who this person is? Is this going to come back later? But then we never really see it. So that made me feel like there was some history there. But the movie doesn't support it. Like the movie we ended up getting doesn't support it. Like he talks to two people in his office. The guy that's kind of like a young guy that he's sort of mentoring, and then this woman. And the guy actually comes back at the end because this is the guy that helps him track the telephone number, but the woman doesn't. And I don't know. I released the uncut version of that sentence. I want to see what else was Kevin Bacon up to. How else was he dealing with his grief?
The Apatow cut that's 4 hours long has all of it you can handle in there.
Just 30 minutes of Kevin Bacon cheating on his wife.
There's a little bit of plot development with the other son. We mentioned the survivor's remorse, and Kevin Bacon freaks out at him because he finds him at the gas station where his brother was killed and tells him, get in the goddamn car, kind of this we'll figure it out type of thing. But there's really not too much time to lament or, discuss, grieve. As I mentioned, there's a personal delivery of his suitcase, which they recovered, the gang that is, at the scene of the crime, and found the picture of his family. Put a phone number on the back of it, with the intimidating red lines through each of the family members' faces. And he calls Garrett Hedlund. And Garrett Hedlund's like, you don't know who you're fucking with. You've just signed a death sentence. So he says the name of the movie, which is something I always mark out for.
You pointed out at the screen. There it is. He said it.
It's the chainsaw, the verbal chainsaw.
So he didn't just find a picture of Kevin Bacon's family. Kevin Bacon's so bad at this that he dropped his entire wallet out there with his briefcase.
Yeah. Again, he's not cut out for this life. He rushes home to protect the family. He calls Aisha Taylor, who, she doesn't really have much in this. She kind of is just given the generic police lines of like, you don't know what you're doing, leave this to the law, that type of shit. But she's a very calming presence and a very unique presence to the movie. So God bless.
Well, it's tricky because she is not entirely sympathetic to him. It's like she's had it with white privilege. There's a moment where she tells him, what, do you think that you could just kill Hoodlum and get away with it because you live all the way over here? It's like, God damn, the man lost his son just like 2 weeks ago. She just has no time for it. She's so tired of just white people making dumb moves.
My sister was in and out of sleep on the couch, and like she kept waking up thinking I was watching Archer because she has the voice of Lana on there.
Yes.
It's like, nope, still watching the movie.
She's not making any jokes here either.
No, she's not. Serious as a heart attack. But she comes over and assigns a car to stay in front of the house to protect the family since they know they're marked. That don't go too well. These poor cops, man, both get their throats slit. And there's a home invasion. There's a shootout. There's practical effects. So, I was fucking going nuts for this. Like, just squids and shit blowing up. Yeah, man. And then we get like a New Jack Vic Grimes type fall off the balcony with Kevin Bacon and one of the henchmen. And then it obviously hurts Kevin Bacon because, again, he's not cut out for this. He is not Ron Swanson on The Last of Us. He is not, John Rambo. This life did not choose him for a reason. So unfortunately, his family gets rounded up, and then they just shoot both of them. That was the main part that nailed home that I had never seen this, because I was like, well, what happens here? And he just kills the whole family. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Shoots the kid, shoots Kelly Preston, shoots Kevin Bacon. You're like, okay, are the credits going to start rolling now?
And it's like boom, boom, and then Bacon's running to make the save and gets shot. And then, of course, the hubris of man, Garrett Hedlund's like, he's probably dead. Just leave him. And so...
terrible, terrible risk assessment on his part. If he makes it to the end of the movie, he's not going to have a job at the end.
That should have been the title card before the end credits. Like The Goods has that one of DJ Request is doing like 1 to 5 years for assault. Like there should have been Nick Hume is currently doing 15 years for defrauding the public with his risk assessment based on this case.
But he doesn't die, Alex. That was were you okay? So when he got shot and the camera starts kind of gives you this overhead shot and starts circling him, did you?
I remember
check how much time was left. Did you think that maybe that was it?
Yeah, it was about a little over halfway over, but I remembered bald Bacon from the end of it. And so I knew like he would be all right. I thought though his family was all dead, and he wakes up and we learn that his son is still alive, but he's like in a coma. And then we get easily Bacon's Oscar scene, right?
With the monologue when he's talking to the kid.
The Oscar clip when he goes in and holds his son's hand and starts crying, talking about,
I think that, it's that, but then with the best picture clip is him crying in the shower.
I would just go full spoiler because, sometimes the Oscar clips will spoil something in the movie. I would do best adapted screenplay is the crying in the shower scene. And then best picture is him pulling out the revolver and looking at Garrett Hedlund and saying, ready? You asking him if he's ready. And then, Garrett Hedlund, because Garrett Hedlund has the 2 single tears that run. He has one on each side go down. So that's your best picture clip right there. But no, this is Kevin Bacon's best actor clip as he holds his son's hand and explains,
you were right. I didn't really like you as much as I did your brother.
Yeah, which is such like a honest thing for a parent to say because he said it first. And then, I would loved your mom, but he goes into how special he was, and the tears are flowing and the tears are real, and now he knows it's go time because he pretty much just, like so many wrestlers of the 80s and 90s, just takes a handful of painkillers and is like, all right, time to go out there and rock the crowd, and bandages himself up. He goes to the bar where this gang hangs out, and we learn that he speaks Spanish. And he tells the bartender he's going to cut his head off and beats up the bartender.
He becomes Kevin Tocino.
And asks and he's trying to
force
"Donde
está Garrett Hedlund?
Gringo Hedlund."
He took all his money too, right? He emptied his bank account, and the teller didn't seem shocked by the fact that he was bleeding profusely.
Oh yeah, and it seems
bruised.
like their family was nearing bankruptcy because if we're to believe he used all the money he took out, there was only like $5,000 left in that savings account. So the Hume family was doomed whether they knew it or not.
That's why he was so eager he was okay with his kid going to Canada. Like, yeah, sure. Get yourself a scholarship.
He was like, he wiped his brow. He's like, oh, thank God, free healthcare.
And the savings too, huh?
Everything. All of it.
Pulling out the kid's college fund, huh?
Billy. I kept forgetting Garrett Hedlund's name. He's where's Billy, that type of thing. And he tells him, and then he's like, well, I'm going to need guns too. So then we get the Clash of the Titans here. And like the reason I would use that Hedlund scene for the best picture is so that there would still be the surprise of this scene for moviegoers. Like, holy shit, Kevin Bacon and John Goodman have it out here. And he goes to talk to Bones and buy some guns from him, and they have this back and forth. He starts with, Goodman sees him and starts with, I don't know you. It's like, well, I'm here to buy some guns. And he shows him the cash he's got, opens his safe. And, they do this transaction. He says he's a preferred customer. He fills this giant duffel bag full of ammunition and guns. It would be funny if it wasn't sad because it's an accurate portrayal of how things happen in this country. And then
Bacon says, yes, the election was stolen. And Goodman was like, oh, yeah, here, have some grenades.
He said, here's my pronouns. and then cocks the gun. And then John Goodman just gives him like the knowing nod as he goes to walk. That doesn't actually happen. We're we're meshing things too seamlessly here. But as Kevin Bacon, as Nick goes to walk away, we do hear a gun cocking because John Goodman's standing behind him and asks, "Are you the one after my son, Billy?" And Bacon has a very, very, very small moment of hesitation. In his mind, he's like, "You're his dad?" And he realizes, he's someone's son, that type of thing. But then John Goodman, of course, is just like, if you're going to kill him, do it. I've been too patient with him. Just don't have the fucking nerve to ask me where he is. It's a very interesting scene and tremendously acted. We've been hyping up Bacon here, but Goodman obviously steals the scenery and the scene here.
Yeah, this is the best scene of the movie. This is where that's why I told you, like, he walks away with the movie for me, because it's not just that he's having so much fun with the role, but also that they give him that moment where he goes against everything you would expect. Did you think that he was Billy's father, or was this a surprise for you the way it was for Bacon?
Yeah, it was a surprise for me as well, because
yeah, me too. I just didn't know if maybe I had missed like something that indicated, because they have one scene together before.
That's what I thought, that I might
Billy
have missed something. But yeah, it just appears as though he's just kind of the guy that gives him odd jobs to do.
Once he reveals that, you're like, all right, we're about to have a showdown between these two. But instead, they pivot, and Goodman, and it never feels out of character. That he just tells him, yeah, he's a fuck up. I mean, it's bound to happen. So go and do your business. He puts it in terms where he's just saying this is just the way it has to be. Somebody kills someone, and now somebody's going to kill somebody else in return. And if that someone has to be my son, well, that's his own fault. I loved it. It was such a unique character moment there, and really it justified the existence of the character. Because up till then, I was, I thought that he was cool, but I'm like, all right, they stunt cast John Goodman, and so they gave him a lot of quirks and a lot of stuff to do, but did we really need that? And then with this scene, it justifies, it's like, oh yeah, you definitely needed John Goodman to play this part. It's amazing. Early Embry contender.
So it's on. He's stocking up his cache of weaponry and shaves his head for some reason. He,
because it was in the poster.
It was, the Robin Tunney moment he has here, where he puts on Free by the Martinis in the background and just decides that it's time to shave his head. I so much fucking love and appreciate, and you're not going to find me talking mad shit about Empire Records, but Deb, Robin Tunney, is, to my knowledge in that film, not like a barber or stylist, and she does a perfect job of shaving her head.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, all right, that's kind of like a movie. Kevin Bacon here is just a madman possessed and does a really poor job of shaving his head, and it stays that way the rest of the movie. It's fantastic.
Yep.
He's just like, fuck it. And
he goes up to Aisha Tyler, and he was like, my head got really hot.
she said, what does Deb say in that? Aisha Taylor asks Nick's like, didn't you have hair on your head when you went in the bathroom? Some of it's still in the sink if you want it.
There's no way that we don't make this joke, but when he's done, he just looks at the massive scar across his head and goes, I guess I still have some healing to do.
God damn you. I hadn't even thought of that. That's outstanding work, Julio. But it's time to do the Lord's work. He is the shepherd, and he's there for the harvest, or whatever other cliche you can think of from any action movie. They do quote The Crow at one point. Fear is for the enemy and bullets, or something like that.
Yeah, who does that? Is that Goodman?
Goodman says that. I'm trying to remember exactly what the line is. Fear is for the enemy, fear and bullets. There you go. Bacon heads out to the compound that this gang hangs at. John Goodman, Bones, goes to warn Billy. He's like, hey, this guy's after you because you're such a fuck up. I'm tired of cleaning up after you. And then he just shoots his dad in the head. That like legitimately shocked me. I was like, holy shit. Goodman takes a bullet to the brain and takes a bump, and then he's just done. It's like the really artistic one too, where the one eyeglass blows out.
Yeah. Did you think that maybe it was someone else? That it wasn't Billy? Because I didn't think that it was Billy. I thought that Kevin Bacon had shot him.
Yes,
because they're really close, and then Goodman's head explodes, and you're like, "Holy shit!"
I had to rewind it because I was like, "What happened?"
That's a rite of passage. That's when Garrett Hedlund really becomes a man.
He says, "Thanks, Dad. I'm using your car," or something really shitty. I was like, oh man, I hope he dies now. Bacon comes into their compound. He shoots a guy's, or first of all, he breaks into this dude that's just hanging out with this girl and pistol whips him until he gives up Billy's location, and then he shoots him in the head because he makes the guy tell Billy, he's like, he's not dead, and he says you're sentenced. And that's when Billy knows like shit's on. This movie's so much cooler than I'm making it sound right now. But when he shows up to the hideout, he shoots this dude's leg off with a shotgun, and then he shoots him in the chest. And if you're going to do this movie, you need someone like James Wan that has like an insatiable thirst for gore and like the hyper violent. Saw has come to be labeled torture porn, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And this is not that. It's just really violent, hyperized life. Or what was the phrase you used earlier about just like, this is
Hyper reality.
Hyper reality, thank you. And that's what this is. When you get shot, yeah, there's going to be a hole and it's going to bleed. But in a movie like this that's so outlandish, why not just have your entire chest cavity blow out? Why not when you get shot in the leg with a gun, your whole fucking leg blows off? Like, why not?
Well, especially because that's what we want. We are like Kevin Bacon. We want retribution. We like Kelly Preston. We want somebody to avenge her. So it makes sense. You're giving the audience what they want, which is not just killing these guys, but killing them with extreme prejudice. It's also, like I said at the beginning of the episode, right? It's part of the contract, I think, when you sit down to watch a vengeance movie, a revenge thriller, you know that you're going to put up with the suffering in the first hour so that you can be rewarded with the actual vengeance part in the last 30 minutes. That's just how it's supposed to work. And I think James Wan understands that, and that's why he doesn't shy away from being extremely graphic in this climatic sequence.
He was certainly not killing them softly.
So what?
So this motherfucker.
He runs through a few of the henchmen, and then it finally results in him. It's like a chapel or like a cathedral in their hideout. Ends up with him and Garrett Hedlund in a shootout. At the last second, it's the bad guy you forget about. It's, the proverbial jump scare in a horror movie as Bodie jumps out. Our boy Eddie's back in the frame, shoots Kevin Bacon through the throat. Kevin Bacon's able to spin around, boom, put one right through his forehead. And then him and Garrett Hedlund are just like shooting body parts off one another. I think Bacon eats one in like the arm and the leg and maybe the midsection, but Hedlund just gets riddled with bullets, and there's one particular that blows like half his hand off. It's metal as fuck. And
he screams, right? Like there's like a kind of not a close up, but it's a closer shot where he looks at his hand blows up and he goes, ah.
I mean, as would be anyone's natural reaction to the situation, but. So Bacon's done. He's holding his neck wound shut, and he sits down on one of the pews there. And then in a really awesome moment, Hedlund thinks he has him dead to rights, but he's so fucked up and, just woozy. And he's Matthew Lillard in Scream, feel a little woozy. And he tries to shoot him twice, but he just misses him wildly by like a football field margin. And so his gun, is out of bullets, and he sits down next to him. And this is the moment I remembered from Booth, watching it up in the projection booth, which of course kind of spoils the movie. But I remember thinking, well, that seemed like a really powerful scene, and it is. Billy sits down next to Nick, and he's like, "Look at you! I turned you into one of us." And he thinks he has like this gotcha moment, and then Kevin Bacon, just pulls out, a gun that would make Revolver Ocelot come in his pants, and it's the one that John Goodman told him would blow someone up type thing. And he places
like, when you absolutely positively have to kill every motherfucker in the room.
Man, you're on fire with the references tonight. Well done. Yeah, and he just pulls out the gun, sets it on his thigh, cocks it, looks at Garrett Hedlund and he asks, ready? Not even, are you ready? Just ready? And then we get the Garrett Hedlund tears. And then in a brilliant maneuver by the filmmaker, in a movie up until this point, where everything has been shown in intense, gruesome detail, the main death we want to see, it's not taken away from us. We just know in that moment, he says, checkmate, I win. And we know he won. And then he steals one of their cars. I laughed when it shows him pulling into his house and he's driving one of their fucking Diablo Stallions or whatever the hell they have. And then he goes into his home, fires up the home videos. Aisha Taylor shows up and walks in, and he looks like shit, man. He's on death's door. He's pale, and he's still holding his neck wound. The man needs medical attention. I think it could be perceived by the viewer that he doesn't make it much longer than the end credits, but we do get the good news that his son is moving and that it looks like he's going to pull through and be fine again. So is that how you read the ending? You think that he dies, but he dies happy because his son survived? This is a part where I really wish you had seen Dancer in the Dark, so I could make a really good analogy. But yeah, and this is where the movie needs to end. Here's the good news. And then, the hero won. Because what is there to gain by going any further than this? The son comes out and his dad's dead, or the son comes out and his dad's doing life in prison. Like, what is there to gain? This is how you make an action movie.
There's an argument. You who love to argue that some endings are more ambiguous than they really are. So you think that there's no ambiguity here. He's definitely going to die.
Oh, no, I don't know about that. I'm sorry. I thought we were arguing the ambiguity of the son. I was like, no, she pretty much said he's going to be fine. I know that the DVD, or there's like an extended version of this, it's just one of those that's 5 minutes long or whatever. Either the alternate ending or the extended version, he does die. But in this one, it's like, what's to gain from us seeing it? I mean, there is the ambiguity there.
Cut to 15 years later, and it's Aisha Tyler is making him breakfast. He's in a wheelchair.
Oh, God. Oh, man. And then, like, they have a daughter, and they name it, what's the...
Kelly.
Not Kelly. What's her... Helen. That's her name in the movie. That'd be even more meta if they're like, here's Kelly Preston Hume. But this is why movies can be perfect in a situation like this. It's like, all right, here's the first act. Here's the second act. Here's the third act with the conclusion. And now get the fuck out of the theater. That's what movies are supposed to be, man.
And it all happens under 2 hours.
Yes, 1:45. Beautiful.
Look at the runtime on Aquaman, just to see how far James Wan has fallen.
Death Sentence is a really weird movie to end the summer with. You would think that would be, you would give that like the Logan spot of like kicking off the summer. Because by that point, who's fucking going to the movies anymore?
Death Sentence, but at the beginning of the summer? No. Because maybe I'm wrong. This is James Wan when he was still, a pup.
Yeah.
And Kevin Bacon wasn't, you didn't expect him to be, he was Kevin Bacon, but he was not, somebody that was going to bring people to the movies just on the string of his name. And then John Goodman has only 2 scenes.
What do you think the best shot was? A January release?
No, that's if they didn't have any faith in it. No, I actually think August makes perfect sense because you're winding down. I always feel like the end of August is where they like throw stuff that they don't know what to do with. They're like, this is good, but because if you put it in January, then people automatically assume that it's bad. But if you put it at the end of the summer, people are like, let's see.
Yeah, and school's back in by the end of the month in most places. And so
kids are not going to go watch this.
The thought could also be that you're able to catch like the daytime traffic of adults trying to kill time. They just had to compete with the box office juggernaut that was Rob Zombie's Halloween. That movie made $80 million. What's your excuse, James Wan?
He didn't have Tyler Mane.
Or Clint Howard. Or Udo Kier, who was cut out of the movie. All right, Julio. Well, I think we've given Death Sentence about as good as the Contrarians treatment as it's going to get. So I am very excited about Real Talk in the second half of this podcast because I think you can tell I was a big fan of this, but curious to get your thoughts on it. So are you ready to move along?
Let's go to Real Talk. Let me shave my head and then we'll pick this back up.
I could never picture you bald, Julio. You got a beautiful head of hair on you.
Now, Mr. Hume, I think it's time you told me. Exactly who did what to whom. You make war on the wrong dog? That what you did? Thought you could just go kill some little asshole because you live all the way out here?
What are you saying? What is she saying, Nick?
I've done nothing wrong.
Well, then why don't you tell me? how you make Billy Darley this pissed off at you.